Abomination Vaults.
Chapter 4. Long Dream the Dead.
Content warning. While Abomination Vaults contains typical Pathfinder action and adventure, it also presents themes of suicide, ableism, body horror, and human experimentation. Before you begin, understand that player consent, including that of the Game Master, is vital to a safe and fun play experience for everyone. You should talk with your players before beginning and modify descriptions or scenarios as appropriate.
Chapter 4 Synopsis. The fourth level of the Abomination Vaults was designed as a retreat for Belcorra to relax and revere her uncaring deity, Nhimbaloth. No faction of significance holds sway over Belcorra's retreat today. Instead, several powerful individuals claim separate portions of this level. The most significant ally the heroes can acquire is the ghost of Otari Ilvashti, the fallen hero who gave the town of Otari its name. Environmental cues: cool but comfortable temperature, fine furnishings that are old yet luxurious, haunted house effects such as closing doors or sliding chairs, profusions of fungi, smells of dust and faint spices, spectral visions of rooms as they looked 500 years ago. Chapter 4 Treasure. The permanent and consumable items available as treasure in Chapter 4 are as follows: +1 Ghost Touch Whip, +1 Striking Composite Longbow, +1 Striking Guitar, +1 Studded Leather Armor, Bracelet of Dashing, Dagger of Venom, Holy Prayer Beads, Lantern of Empty Light, Lesser Mistform Elixir, Minor Sturdy Shield, Scroll of Comprehend Languages, Scroll of Paralyze, Scroll of Worm's Repast, Sneaky Key, Viper Arrow. The fourth level of the Abomination Vaults is one of the smaller ones overall, yet it's among the finest, as it once served as Belcorra's personal retreat. Belcorra's retreat features: ceilings in this level are 10 feet tall in halls and 15 feet in rooms, unless otherwise indicated. Rooms are unlit. The doors are iron-banded wood. Ephemeral spirits gently shut any doors left open for more than a minute. Area D1. Belcorra's dining room, a moderate level 4 encounter. A pair of brightly glowing chandeliers illuminates a long banquet table, surrounded by luxurious high-backed chairs. The table is still set for a grand meal, but some of the place settings are scattered and toppled, as are a few of the chairs. 4 skeletons in tattered finery are scattered about the room, some of them clutching their own necks. When the Rose Guard assaulted Gauntlight Keep so many years ago, Belcorra was dining here with representatives of a now extinct Absalonian Thieves Guild, who she was courting as potential allies against the city. When word came that the Rose Guard was handily overcoming the keep's defences, Belcorra took no chances. She politely excused herself, bade her guests to finish their meals, and magically commanded her chef to poison all of them and murder the other servants before taking his own life. Stairs beyond the north door lead up to Area C29. Creatures. The guests died in excruciating pain, then later became havens for corpse-light seeking hosts. When a living creature other than Volok enters this room, the corpse lights within the skeletons begin to glow, then the skeletons stagger to their feet and attack. Each time a corpse light is forced into wisp form, it flees to one of the adjoining rooms in Area D2, D3 or D6 to claim another corpse host and return to the fight. Treasure. A search of the guest's remains reveals 48 gold pieces, a bracelet of dashing, and a viper arrow. Area D2, Kitchen. A strange squat cast iron stove with no chimney sits in the southwest corner of this room, while to the north, a large oak table covered with cooking utensils sits against a wall. A skeletal body slumps at the base of the cupboards, along the western wall. The stove magically transmutes smoke welling up from its fires into clean air, but it's built into the stove of this room and far too heavy to be worth the trouble of hauling away from the dungeon. The body was once Belcorra's cook, who died by suicide after carrying out Belcorra's magical commands to poison the guests and kill the other servants. A hero who searches this room and succeeds at a DC 19 perception check spots a secret door to the north. Some cooking utensils are affixed to the wall. Manipulating them in the correct order opens the secret door. Area D3 – Storage. The walls of this chamber are lined with cupboards, shelves and cabinets. A few barrels sit in the middle of the room. 2 skeletons are slumped near the barrel. The skeletons were once 2 other servants who retreated to this storage room before being murdered by the chef. Nothing of value remains. Area D4 – Wine Cellar. A tall wine rack, its bottles thick with dust after so many years, stands against the north wall. Treasure. Nearly all of the wine has gone bad, but a successful DC 18 society check is enough to note 3 valuable bottles worth 20 gold pieces each. Area D5 – Level 4 Portal Chamber. The walls of this chamber are decorated with twisting runes carved into the walls and filled with dull silvery metal. The floor and ceiling are almost completely covered with large polished metal discs. This room contains an inert teleportation circle like the ones in Area B17 and C16. This teleportation circle must be reactivated with the Awaken Portal ritual hidden in Area C35 to connect it to the other portal chambers in the dungeon. Experience Award. Award the heroes 30 experience points for activating this portal. Area D6 – Washing Room. A dusty metal wash tub with a small skeleton lying inside sits next to a low shelf in this room. As the guests in Area D1 were dying of poison, one of them managed to stab a halfling servant who staggered into this large dish washing tub and died. If the skeleton is disturbed, the tub momentarily appears to be clean and filled with soapy water before returning to its actual dusty state. The scent of harsh dish soap clings for a minute before fading. Area D7 – Disposal Room. A low level 4 encounter. An open metal hatch lies in the floor against this room's east wall. Storage bins sit to the north and south, each heaped with old bones, broken tools and lumps of stone. Several bones in one of the trash bins belongs to a human. A hero investigating the bones can easily determine this. A servant slipped against a trash bin and died here 2 days before Belcorra's last meal in Area D1. The other servants simply hefted her body into the bin. The hatch opens into a long chute that leads to the disposal pond in Area D17. Anyone who enters the chute swiftly slides down to the pond in a rough trip that deals 3d6 bludgeoning damage with a DC 20 basic reflex save upon landing. Anyone in the chute who doesn't want to slide down can arrest their fall with a successful DC 18 reflex save to grab an edge, or with a successful DC 18 acrobatics or athletics check to brace in place. In either case, a successful DC 18 athletics check is required to safely traverse the chute. Creatures. The spirit of the servant who accidentally died here has returned as a poltergeist racked with indignation. It's lurking here, invisible, but it doesn't attack until it's spotted or until someone approaches the lip of the chute. It hurls debris from the trash bins or uses telekinetic maneuver to shove foes into the open hatch. It fights until destroyed, but it can't leave this room. The poltergeist can be put to rest by disposing of its remains in a respectful manner, such as cremating them or saying a word of blessing over them. Area D8 – Lounge. A severe level 4 encounter. The walls of this large chamber are hung with grisly paintings depicting various spectral beings cavorting among ruined neighbourhoods, overgrown swamps and foggy graveyards. 3 large overstuffed chairs pair with small end tables, upon which sits empty wine glasses. To the south stands a cluttered writing desk with its own chair, while a large iron tub to the west is visible between standing screens depicting shadowy marshes. This large lounge once served as a place for Belcorra to relax. But today it functions as a den for her one-time apprentice, the drow Volek Erasne. Most papers on the desk are Volek's disjointed notes. More usefully to the heroes, the papers also include detailed blueprints of the top 3 levels of the Abomination Vaults, including all secret doors. A hero searching the room and who succeeds at a DC 20 perception check finds the secret door in the east wall, a lifelike graveyard painting that swings outwards. Every 10 minutes or so, a faint scream issues from the other side of the secret door. It sounds like it's emanating from the picture. After the first scream, the DC to find the door drops to 12. A hero searching this room who succeeds at a DC 25 perception check finds an iron key hidden in a secret slot in one of the desk's legs. It opens Lasda's manacles in area D9. Creatures. Unlike most of the denizens who dwelt in the Abomination Vaults in Belcorra's day, Volek is still alive, after a fashion. After feeding himself to a vat of ritually prepared leeches, he lives as a hideous worm that walks. Volek resembles a roughly drow-shaped mass composed of thousands of slithering leeches. He has been working with the Void Glutton that now dwells in Belcorra's old chambers, in area D20, to restore Gauntlight, but he's frustrated that Belcorra's ghost doesn't speak to him directly. Being forced to do his mistress's bidding through the will of the Void Glutton galls the proud occultist. Volek is reading at his desk when the heroes first arrive. As soon as he notices the hero's intrusion, he rises up, a squirming, awful mess, and demands to know who they are and why they've come. He has little interest in constructive discourse, but if the heroes let him talk, he uses intimidation to roll initiative. Treasure. Among Volek's papers are a scroll of Comprehend Language, a scroll of Paralyze, and a scroll of Worm's Repast. A lantern of empty light sits on the writing desk. Volek takes this lantern on his journeys above ground, where he unknowingly spawned the rumours of a lantern-carrying stranger. Area D9, Lasda's Lament, a moderate level 4 encounter. The walls of this circular chamber are smooth and grey. A flickering, nauseating ribbon of pale blue light churns in the centre of the room. Where the light touches the ceiling, the stone bubbles as if it were infected flesh. Below the light bathes a screaming, thrashing dwarf, bound on a metal table, his body covered in blisters. As in area B35, the ribbon of light is a manifestation of Gauntlight's growing power. This eerie light churns in a 5-foot diameter burst in the room's centre. Any living creature ending its turn in it takes 5d6 negative damage with the DC 18 basic reflex save, and undead creatures regain the same amount. To reactivate Gauntlight for its test firing on Otari's graveyard, Volek and the Void Glutton needed a living creature as an anchor for the light. While the others who touch the light suffer negative damage, the light simultaneously heals its anchor as swiftly as it harms them, keeping the person in a perpetual state of agony. This victim is a dwarf named Lasda Vankervale, a lawful good male dwarf bartender of 2nd level, once the bartender at the Rowdy Rockfish in Otari. Volek abducted Lasda just over a year ago for nefarious experiments, while the dwarf was on one of his customary pre-dawn walks from the Rockfish up to the graveyard. Volek kept Lasda as a prisoner in Area D11 for many months, and impressed by the dwarf's hardiness, decided to use him as Gauntlight's anchor. Creatures. The heroes can't focus on rescuing Lasda without first defeating a will-o-wisp that has been gorging itself on Lasda's terror. It's invisible when the heroes first arrive, but it flares up in an angry blue glow as soon as the heroes attempt to aid the dwarf. It pursues foes who flees, and fights to the death. Side quest. To remove Lasda from the terrible ribbon of energy, the heroes must first unlock the 4 manacles that bind him. The key to these manacles can be found in Area D8, or the heroes can succeed at 3 DC 22 thievery checks to pick a lock on each manacle. Unless the heroes have some means of working on the locks from a distance, each round a hero works to unlock a manacle by the key or otherwise. That hero is exposed to the ribbon of necromantic energy. Once freed and removed from the energy ribbon, Lasda recovers his mobility after 2d4 rounds of gasping for breath. Lasda can tell the heroes the harrowing tale of his imprisonment and give a partial description of areas D1 to D11. The heroes might have heard of Lasda's disappearance if they've spoken to his worried mother, Brelda, at the Rowdy Rockfish. If the heroes return Lasda to the Rowdy Rockfish, his mother is overjoyed and presses upon the heroes a family heirloom, a minor sturdy shield emblazoned with an angry-looking rockfish as a reward. Removing Lasda from the Ribbon of Light causes the necromantic energy here and in area B35 and C15 to vanish. While this prevents Belcorra from firing Gauntlight's beam upon Otari again, the reprieve is only temporary. As the heroes will learn from Otari's ghost, Belcorra continues to prepare Gauntlight for its true purpose far below. In addition, once Lasda is removed, the haunts on the upper 4 levels of the Abomination Vaults don't reset if they're deactivated or defeated. These effects return if both Volek and the Void Glutton survive, and they're given several days to find and install a new victim. If they do so, this should be a non-player character whose kidnapping spurs the heroes into action. Area D10, Scalathrax Pen, a moderate level 4 encounter. The floor of this rough-hewn cavern is strewn with bones and scraps of metal and cloth. All 3 irregular rock passages out of this area end in secret doors. All 3 secret doors are obvious from within the cavern. Creature. This cavern once merely connected the southwestern and northwestern wings of the level, but it now serves as a pen for a trio of Scalathraxes. One of these has already been transported from Area D9 via Gauntlight's beam to Otari in Chapter 2. But the other 2 remain here, waiting Bollock's next Gauntlight test. They're poorly fed and attack the heroes on sight, pursuing them relentlessly. Area D11, Torture Chamber, a moderate level 4 encounter. 3 5-foot square iron cages, the bars lined with spikes from the inside, hang from chains in the middle of this room. Blood-crusted manacles dang from the chains on the west wall. A stout wooden table with more manacles anchored to it stands at the southwest corner, and on it sits a whip made of blood-red leather with a silver handle. Here Belcorra imprisoned and tortured those lacking the qualities she sought for flesh-warping experiments or arena battles in the level below. Once she was satisfied her prisoners had nothing left to offer, or once she grew bored, she sent them to Area D13 for sacrifice. The dwarf bartender Lasda inhabited the central hanging cage for many months. The northern cage has silver-lined runes carved into its exterior. The cage is the destination of the inactive teleportation circle in Area C5B. It can be restored with an awakened portal ritual. If so, it makes a useful way to imprison anyone pushed into the alcove in Area C5. A hero who searches the table and succeeds at a DC 20 perception check spots a hidden switch on its underside that opens the secret door to the south. Creatures. An evangelist Velstrak named Volgrist has been bound here by Belcorra's magic for centuries. The indeterminable years instilled a sense of listlessness in the torturer, and she rarely even moves about the room. Her hope of cruel amusements was briefly rekindled when she had Lasda to toy with, but she had only just begun a few months of laying the groundwork for his torment when he was taken away. Her ennui has returned even stronger than before. At first, Volgrist can hardly stir herself to bother with the heroes. She morosely invites them to depart this chamber and never return. There's no trick here. If the heroes simply leave at once, the Velstrak lets them go. If they persist or question her, she sighs in frustration and attacks. She has no interest in talking. She fights until destroyed, but doesn't leave this area. With all the manacles present here, Volgrist can use her Animate Chains ability from anywhere in this room. Treasure. The whip is a +1 Ghost Touch whip. It was one of Volgrist's favourite weapons, but she doesn't use it any longer. Pay attention if a hero keeps the whip, as it might have some use for them in Area E2. Area D12, the Ghostwalk, a moderate level 4 encounter. The ceiling of this wide hall rises to a height of 25 feet. Stone sarcophagi carved with tormented, emaciated figures stand upright in alcoves along its walls. To the northeast, A 15-foot wide portion of the wall has crumbled away into a series of ledges that drop down into a cavern. Eerie blue lights glow to the north and south. The lights to the south are brighter and constant, while the lights to the north flicker softly. This long hallway served as a gruesome trophy hall, with the exception of the two northernmost alcoves, and the alcoves leading to Area D10. Each sarcophagus contains the defiled remains of one of Belcorra's enemies, stripped of gear and put on display. As soon as anyone steps up to a sarcophagus, its stone lid becomes transparent, providing a view of the long-dead body within. Each corpse is dressed in rags and marked with obviously fatal wounds. Most of these remains are long-dead heroes with no significant relation to the Abomination Vaults adventure path. The corpses here used to be linked to enslaved ghosts that guarded the hall, but their undead presence has been inadvertently drawn into the magical wall at the south end of this hallway. A large flight of stairs to the south leads down to Area E1. For now, progress to this level is blocked by a shimmering wall of ectoplasm. Now and then, silently shrieking ghosts flit through the swirling mist of this wall. The stairwell beyond remains visible, yet tauntingly inaccessible. This wall acts as a wall of force heightened to 9th level. It has been forged from the agonized souls of the heroes displayed throughout this hallway. They're the trapped ghosts who silently cry in agony within the wall. This wall's creation was an unintended side effect of Gauntlight's test firing, after it had lain dormant for so long. For now though, the wall blocks progress deeper into the dungeon. Only the icons of Belcorra's killer can bring it down, as the ghost of Otari Ilvashti in Area D18 can explain. The secret door in the alcove, which leads to Area D10, is built into the back of the only empty sarcophagus. A hero who searches the empty sarcophagus and succeeds at a DC 20 perception check discovers the latch to swing the sarcophagus open like a door. The collapse in the northwest wall leads to a series of 5-foot high ledges that drop down to Area D14. Creatures. The two northernmost sarcophagi contain traitorous apprentices transformed into Khanwights. If anyone approaches within 15 feet of them, both lids pop open and the Khanwights emerge to attack. They relentlessly pursue foes throughout this level. Area D13, Upper Temple of Nhimbaloth, a severe level 4 encounter. This vast octagonal chamber is mostly empty. The walls are carved and painted to resemble a sprawling graveyard, half sunken into a swampy morass. Yet all the graves in the mural are open and empty. Carved images of shrieking ghosts parade up into the hungry pupil of a malevolent eye at the apex of this room 30 feet above. A circular 15-foot diameter platform sits in the middle of the room, raised 3 feet off the surrounding floor. The platform supports an altar of stone made of an irregular slab of rock marked by 7 deep indentations. Almost as if a huge 7-fingered hand had gripped the stone with enough force to leave grooves behind. Now and then, a faint blue light flickers and pulses inside one of these indentations. Small objects lie heaped atop the altar. A successful DC 25 religion check to recall knowledge identifies this chamber as a shrine dedicated to Nhimbaloth, the outer god of despair, ghosts and swamps. Her shrines are often empty of additional furnishings, such as statues or benches, symbolizing the emptiness of death itself. Worshippers typically kneel or prostrate themselves on the stone floor, while priests lead sermons and sacrifices at the altar. The entire shrine is infused with an overwhelming sense of despair and hopelessness. Any living creature who enters this room must succeed at a DC 22 will save, or become frightened, or frightened 2 on a critical failure. A living creature can't reduce its frightening condition while in this chamber. A critical success grants the creature temporary immunity for 24 hours. Creatures. A hero who succeeds at a DC 16 perception check from the room's entrance identifies the objects on the altar as 4 severed hands. These undead guardians scuttle forth and attack when the heroes enter this room. When the hands animate, 4 flicker wisps slither out of the indentations on the altar's side and join in their attack. The flicker wisps and the crawling hands don't pursue foes from the shrine room. If no foes are present, They return to their original place on the altar. They fight until destroyed. Lights from the altar. The altar produces a new flicker-wisp each day at dusk, but no more than 4 flicker-wisps can exist in this chamber at one time. The malevolent aura and flicker-wisp generation persists until the heroes place the 4 rose guard icons atop the altar stone, as directed by Otari's ghost in Area D18. At this point, the frightening despair in the room ends, and the altar produces no more flicker-wisps. Area D14, Pavilion, a severe level 4 encounter. This immense cavern is cold and damp. Water drips from condensation above into a large still lake. Thick patches of moist mushrooms, some nearly 4 feet tall, grow along the western shore of the lake, while a narrow trickle of water feeds in from a tunnel to the south. A 35-foot long pavilion made of stone stands in the middle of the lake, elevated 10 feet above the water level by more than a dozen stone columns. The entire pavilion is encrusted with damp, pale fungus. 2 stone bridges arch from the pavilion, one connecting it to a door set in the northern wall, and another to a door to the east. A faintly flickering campfire burns in the middle of the pavilion, its smoke curling into the ceiling. The fungus growing here might look ominous, but it's harmless. The lake has steep banks that drop away into a nearly uniform depth of 15 feet. Belcorra built this pavilion as a place to meditate. The denizens of the Abomination Vault don't visit here, as the lingering presence of Otari's ghost in Area D18 subconsciously influences them to stay away. Living creatures, such as the pavilion's current inhabitant, don't feel these influences. Creatures. A grizzled, feral-looking man lives on the pavilion. He is Joel Mesman, a violent criminal and a murderous werewolf, wanted in the town of Otari for the slaying of several locals 30 years ago. Joel's last victim was a woman named Ayla Lathana, wife of Kalino Lathana, the owner of the Otari market. Joel hid in plain sight as one of the druids from Stone Ring Pond while he committed these murders, but when he was found out, he escaped capture by leaping from the Otari cliffs into the sea. The tides pulled him into the sea caves, leaving him nearly drowned, but over the following weeks he recovered and found his way here. Joel's been living here ever since. His skin is pasty and pale, and he reeks of mushroom and sour sweat. Cave crickets make up the bulk of his diet, and his only companion over the years has been a series of loyal wolves. When one perishes, Joel simply makes his way out through the caves to bond with another. At first he plans to return to Otari, but after living in this cave for so many years, Joel knows no other life. The heroes disrupt that life, however. When Joel notices them, he staggers up to the edge of the pavilion and howls and barks wildly to warn them away. The wolf at his side accompanies these howls with its own. A hero who succeeds at a DC 27 society check to recall knowledge realizes this man is the killer who disappeared from Otari a generation ago. At your discretion, a hero familiar with Joel's legacy treats the result of this check as 1 degree success greater than the rolled result. If the heroes attack Joel or attempt to enter his pavilion, he assumes his hybrid form and attacks. If the heroes hang back, he continues to bark and howl until someone can calm him down. As soon as the heroes successfully use any skill with the linguistic trait on Joel, such as to create a convincing lie, to use diplomacy to make an impression, or try to coerce him, he stops howling and blinks several times as he remembers he can talk as well. A few moments later, he calls out in a halting voice, warning the heroes that this is his territory and they aren't welcome. His initial attitude is hostile, and if the heroes try to talk to him too much, he grows frustrated and uses his magic to attack from afar. Depending on the questions the heroes ask, Joel might reveal his name or who he is, but it's likely only a matter of time before the paranoid werewolf loses its patience and attacks. If Joel is reduced to 30 or fewer hit points, he begs for mercy and promises to give the heroes a reward if they spare him. This reward is Ayla's necklace. Heroes who show Joel mercy can get him to talk further. Joel is somewhat familiar with the eastern half of this level, areas D14 to D19. For example, he can warn the heroes of a shadowy ghost on the island to the south in Area D18, and tell them that if they enter the Nightmare Stairs to the north in Area D19, they do well to keep their eyes closed if they ever want to escape them. If the heroes let him go, he exits through the sea caves and flees the region. Whether or not he resumes his murderous ways is left for you to decide. Side quest. The heroes can bring Jewel in, dead or alive, to Otari for a 50 gold piece bounty. If the heroes don't realise who he is right away, allow a hero who looks over the inscription on his necklace to attempt a DC 18 society check, DC 13 if the hero is affiliated with Otari Market. On a success, the heroes recognise the name as Ayla Lathana, dead wife of the Otari Market merchant Kalino Lathana. Approaching Kalino with proof that the werewolf is dead, as the bitter man won't accept his wife's murderer remaining alive, earns the heroes a 20% discount for all purchases at the Otari Market for life. Area D15, Twisting Tunnel. Several slippery ledges lead up and out of Area D14, joining to a small complex of caverns that stretch between the fog fen and the coast. It was via these tunnels that Joel Mesman arrived, and he leaves through them occasionally to hunt for food. The tunnels connect to the coastline west of Otari, in a sea cave that's underwater even at low tide. The actual contents of his caverns are beyond the scope of this adventure, but they likely contain other predators and dangers. Feel free to expand them if the heroes wish to explore them and are in need of additional experience points. Area D16, Haunted Stairs. A staircase leads upwards from this narrow landing. The south wall, facing the stairs, flickers and glows with ribbons of eerie green luminescence. These stairs lead up to Area C33. During his flight through the Abomination Vaults, Otari Ilvashti made one of his final stops on this staircase. He waited here for only an hour to patch some wounds and regain some of his courage, then moved on through the door to Area D14, hoping to find an escape route. Unfortunately, he never made it to the sea cave exit, for the enormous Otyugh that dwelt in the cavern in those days attacked him at once. Otari was forced to flee south and make it to Area D18. The Otyugh was too large to reach him there, but too stubborn to leave, and that's where Otari finally perished from a disease the Otyugh afflicted upon him. As in areas B28 and C3, Otari's spiritual energy remains here. When the heroes reach this point, another message manifests in a glowing light on the wall. "Gauntlight is a weapon, built to raise Absalom. It must be brought down." After the message is read, the words slide into a writhing ribbon of footprints that lead into Area D14 and makes a panic twisting route down through to Area D17 and into Area D18. This spectral manifestation can appear only once per day. Area D17, Disposal Pond. A rusty metal chute protrudes from the ceiling to the west here, coming to the end over a pool of slimy water. A huge mound of fungus lies under the tube against the west wall, resting in a strangely monstrous shape. This chute leads up to Area D7, but it's slick and requires a successful DC 18 athletics check to climb. Characters who are dumped into the pool of water here find it cold and unpleasant, but it's only 3 feet deep. Fortunately, the immense Otyugh that was kept here for trash disposal purposes died long ago. Its strangely preserved body lies encased in fungus under the pipe. Anyone who examines the remains of the huge Otyugh can identify it with a successful DC 23 occultism check to recall knowledge. Area D18, Otari's Doom, a severe level 4 encounter. The water in this area is dark, but only 3 feet deep. A low rocky islet rises less than a foot above the surrounding water here. Its surface is covered with a fine layer of pale green mushrooms and mould. A human skeleton dressed in rotten leather armour and clutching a rapier lies at a heap at the centre of the isle. The skeleton on the island was once Otari Ilvashti. He survived the battle with Belcorra and a desperate flight through the upper levels of the Abomination Vaults, only to become trapped here by the immense Otyugh waiting in Area D17. Already weakened from his ordeal before contracting filth fever from the fight with the Otyugh, Otari lingered on this tiny islet only 2 days before he perished. Today his spirit lingers on, both in the form of the strange warnings on the wall throughout the Abomination Vaults, and also as a ghost consumed by two linked desires: vengeance on Belcorra, and fear that Gauntlet might yet be used again to harm his hometown of Absalom. As the heroes draw near, Otari's ghost rises up from his skeleton, appearing much as he did during the late stage of Filth Fever, albeit with a transparent green shade. Otari can't leave this area, and since the heroes are the first potentially helpful adventurers to visit his haunted remains, he's eager to provide help. Creatures. Before Otari can speak to the heroes, a will-o-wisp and two flicker-wisps that have tormented him for years dart forth to protect their fear-laden victim. Otari can do little more than warn the heroes about the eyes of empty death before they swoop forth to attack. Once combat begins, Otari provides what aid he can. The aberrations long ago learned to stay out of the ghost's reach, but Otari makes an infested shadow strike against them by momentarily possessing the hero's shadow. After the wisps are defeated, Otari provides a wealth of information. Treasure. Otari encourages the heroes to claim and use his gear once he's done speaking with them. His Infiltrator Thieves tools are one of the 4 icons required to overcome the barrier in Area D12. His other gear consists of a Dagger of Venom, a Sneaky Key, and a +1 studded leather armor. What Otari knows. Otari's role is to present the tasks necessary to reach the lower levels of the Abomination Vaults. Once the heroes encounter Otari's ghost and drive away the wisps that torment him, he relates his tale of woe. He has difficulty remembering much of his life, but becomes very emotional if he learns that the other members of the Rose Guard survived and founded a town that they named after him. While Otari's information about the dungeon is centuries out of date, his supernatural link to the Abomination Vaults affords him glimpses into the inner workings of the dungeon and its key players. As Otari speaks to the heroes, make sure to convey the following key points of information to them, either in the form of answers to his questions or as volunteered information. Belcorra harboured a grudge against Absalom and intended to use her sinister lighthouse, Gauntlet, as a weapon against the city. The Rose Guard never discovered its actual use, other than it had something to do with the ability to transport creatures across significant distances and could animate the dead with its light. None of the other Rose Guard members knew about the Abomination Vaults beneath Gauntlet. Otari learned about them only in his last few days alive. Some property of the Abomination Vaults increases the manifestation of ghosts, spectral undead, and haunts within their domain. Otari initially believed this was a side effect of Gauntlet, but has now come to suspect a link to a much more ancient and ominous source deep below this level. He knows nothing of Nhimbaloth, but if the heroes tell him of the Outer God, he suspects her influence is the source. Belcorra herself is now a ghost, although she can't move far from the site on which she's anchored. Otari can sense her somewhere deep underground, and is also aware that her range of movement is slowly expanding. Otari suspects Belcorra intends to fully reactivate Gauntlet and to use it to begin her long-delayed attack on Absalom. She must be put to rest before she can finish this task. Otari isn't sure how to stop her, but believes that clues await discovery in the deeper levels of the Abomination Vaults. Finally, Otari discusses the barrier in Area D12 blocking progress deeper into the Abomination Vaults. He understands that it's powered by the souls of Belcorra's defeated enemies. Fortunately, he also understands how to take the barrier down. The Rose Guard were the ones who finally killed her, and their psychic resonance can drop the barrier. The heroes must find and place the 4 icons of the Rose Guard, once held dear, onto the altar in Area D13 to do this. Otari's thieves' tools are here with his bones and serve as his icon. The other icons are the brooch belonging to the cleric Asfina Menhims, which bears the religious symbol of her god Eristil, the spellbook belonging to the wizard Zamavdian, and the trusty longsword of the fighter Vol Rajani. These other 3 icons are described later and can be found on the surface in Otari. Recovering them is the focus of the first part of Chapter 5. Once the heroes take on the burden of facing and defeating Belcorra, and opening the way to the deeper levels of the Abomination Vaults, Otari's soul is free to travel for its final reward. You should ensure he has imparted all of the information described here before he fades away.
If you wish though, you can put a darker spin on things. Rather than have Otari's spirit achieve freedom, you could instead have it be captured by the Temple of Nhimbaloth at the bottom of the Abomination Vaults. In this case, the hero should learn about Otari's fate through a vision or nightmare, or perhaps even see his tormented soul pulled downward against his will. Otari's ghost remains trapped until the heroes can finally defeat Belcorra. Area D19, the Forever Stairs. The walls of this 5-foot wide hallway shimmer and ripple with faint whirls of pale blue energy. A staircase to the west leads upwards, and one to the east leads down. Both the ascending and descending stairs reach small landings. While at first glance this hallway might seem unremarkable, it should quickly become clear that something truly strange is going on here once the heroes start to travel it. The hallway loops back upon itself. For example, if the heroes choose to go clockwise, the stairs will always lead upward, but they will end up at the same place they started after making a complete circuit. Belcorra created this distorted spatial effect in the early days of her construction of the Abomination Vaults, as she was experimenting with several magical methods of delivering her monsters directly into the streets of Absalom. While she ultimately abandoned spatial warping as too inefficient to be used on a sufficiently large scale, she kept this warped hall she constructed as a sort of defensive moat around her personal quarters. The outside doors to Area D13 and D14 are always present, but the alcove and door to Area D20 are concealed by an illusionary wall created by a 5th level illusionary object spell. The will DC to disbelieve the illusion is 26, but the heroes might find the wall in other ways. A hero who succeeds at a DC 20 perception check while searching the north hallway, or a DC 20 Arcana or Occultism check while investigating the North Hall, identifies anomalies with the blue energy that indicate something is unusual about that section of the wall. Experience Award. Grant the heroes 30 experience points the first time they manage to reach Area D20. Area D20, Belcorra's Suite, an extreme level 4 encounter. These 4 angled rooms have identical basic descriptions. Adjust the following as needed to account for the location of any doors in the room. Area D20D also features a plain stone archway in one wall filled with blank stone. This is an inactive portal to the depth of the Abomination Vaults. A pair of doors provide exits from this room, one of which is set a foot higher in the room's dusty floor on a semicircular step. When Belcorra first began construction of the Abomination Vaults, these chambers served as her personal suite. She lived here for many years as she oversaw the construction of the dungeons both above and below. But once the project was complete, she abandoned this home for one even deeper underground. She moved her belongings deep below as well, leaving these chambers abandoned and empty. But when she became a ghost, her spiritual energy reacted in much the same way as Otari's did, by manifesting lingering images within these rooms, where she spent so many hours. As a result, each time the heroes step into one of these 4 rooms, they're greeted with a brief ghostly image of the room as it once was. Each time they also see a vision of Belcorra herself within the room. Descriptions of each room's visions are given here, but the chances are good that the heroes won't have time to study the scenes at first, due to the terrifying creature that calls this place home. Area D20A. This room was once a comfortable sitting room with 2 chairs and a low-end table between them. In the brief vision, Belcorra is meeting with the drow Volek, as he was in life as a drow. Although the image has no sound, Belcorra is speaking animatedly about something, and Volek is listening attentively. Area D20B. Originally a lounge with 2 plush divans, this room flashes an image of Belcorra relaxing while reading a large tome. A hero who succeeds at a DC 18 perception check sees that the book is titled The Whispering Reeds. This book is currently in Area C35. Area D20C. A well-set table reveals this to have once been Belcorra's private dining room. In the image, she sits alone at the table, drinking a glass of wine and enjoying an elegantly plated roast arm that looks disturbingly human. Area D20D. Belcorra's bedroom features a large bed along the west wall. The stone arches to the north shimmers as a portal opens, and Belcorra stepped through with a cruel smile on her lips and blood on her hands. Creatures. A powerful and horrific entity known as a Void Glutton has dwelt within these chambers since Belcorra abandoned them. Unlike many of Belcorra's minions, the Void Glutton came to her of its own free will, drawn from across the dimensions by echoes of Nhimbaloth's presence. It volunteered to aid Belcorra as guardian of the upper shrine in Area D13, but once she relocated her personal effects to deeper within the Abomination Vaults, it took over these rooms. It basks in the latent fears and pains of the dungeon's haunts and ghosts. When Belcorra rose as a ghost, the Void Glutton took note and visited her, learning of her plans to reactivate Gauntlight, and realizing it would take time to awaken the dormant artifact. The Void Glutton helped her refine the plans to test Gauntlight, and has recently done so with Volok's aid, as the heroes experienced in the beginning of Chapter 2. Since then, the Void Glutton has lurked here, understanding that it's just a matter of time before Belcorra contacts it again to enact the next stage of her plan. The Void Glutton moves from room to room in this area as it finds the echoes of Belcorra's spirit soothing. It therefore has an equal chance of being in Area D20A, D20B, D20C, or D20D when the heroes arrive. It notes the heroes' intrusion immediately, however, and swiftly moves to confront them. The creature has no interest in negotiation. It attacks at once and fights to the death, but it doesn't pursue heroes who flee these rooms. If the Void Glutton clearly has the upper hand over a group of intruders, it might offer to let most of them flee if they leave a single survivor for it to torment to death over the next few months. Area D21, Trophy Vault. The walls of this octagonal chamber are sheathed in a foul-looking moist webbing made of stringy semi-transparent slime. The bodies of 3 creatures have been mounted on the walls in this webbing, as if on display: a lavender-skinned elf, a legless body of a spider-like humanoid, and a hideous humanoid with transparent flesh. Belcorra took all of her treasure with her when she left, but the Void Glutton has used this place as a den for many years and has placed a few of its favourite trophies here, bodies of creatures whose minds it fed upon and found to be particularly delightful, along with some of their potent gear and treasures. The bodies themselves are encased on the walls by the Void Glutton's ectoplasmic webbing and must be cut free before they can be searched. Once free, the bodies swiftly begin to decay, no longer held in stasis by the effects of the Void Glutton's web. Treasure. The upper torso of a Drider from the Flesh Warping Labs, on the 6th level of the Abomination Vaults, carries a vial of lesser misform elixir. A Drow outcast from the outpost of Yildaris on the 9th level of the Abomination Vaults wears a strand of holy prayer beads on one wrist. The body of an Erdafen on the same level carries a +1 striking composite longbow in a case.